So my role is to say farewell and to do some summing up. So farewell, that's the easy bit. Summing up, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough time to do it. There were 26 speakers, if you include the discussants, as well as the presenters, but I thought all of them were excellent. I will come back to the summing up, but I would like to make 3 points, and I asked the leaders of the workshop what would be a good outcome of the workshop. And at least I spoke to 2 out of the 3. I didn't speak to Andrea, so apologies for that, but I spoke to Marion and Daniele. The first one is that we would like to make this an annual event, quite an informal, small group. Not necessarily run out of Birkbeck every time, but we're seeking to have this sort of policy debate around this topic. So we will certainly seek to do that, and we will like to have participants and also potential funders to help us, support us in that role. And that's one of the things Daniele and Marion agreed to. The second one was help in formulating a response to the Green Paper. And I suppose that goes back to the 3 essay questions that they set us right at the beginning in their paper itself. What's going on, what is being done, and what should be done differently or additionally. And I think those are good questions, and I think a lot of the discussion today at least try to answer those. So I thought that was a good start. And then thirdly, related to that, is around perhaps organising a wider innovation policy exchange involving the European Investment Bank, but others, to particularly talk about their individual national experiences as well as the wider EU level. Daniele mentioned UK, Italy and France to begin with potentially, but we're looking at other participants, and again that would be dependent on where the next workshop would be. So I think those were the 3 key good outcomes that they were looking at. On the second one, I suppose my question to you would, do they send some of the details and issues back to you? Is that what you would like, and set up a dialogue?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
We would love to get,
okay.
Including the insults, That
Yeah. Okay, so and as well as a preface to the summing up, Birkbeck has now started a policy briefing papers. So we had a workshop just before Christmas, I think, on research metrics and research impact, which there was a policy briefing paper on that. I will do one for today. It's always quite a heroic effort, but it's something that is at least useful and in a sense to move the debate on, to set out some of the contact details, and also perhaps looking forward about what we might do next year. Because I think there was a lot of discussion about whether to make this a much larger forum, and I think its intimacy and the high level of discussion, I think, has been very beneficial to the debate today. So I congratulate the organisers on that. Now, we get kicked out in about 7 minutes' time, so I've been told about that. I've added to them as well as I've got 9 issues, so I can talk about that now. I'm not sure if it's going to be that useful, but if you want me to do that, I can try and do it in 5 minutes. Would that be useful? No. Yes. Okay. So I think the day started around almost investment in what should we be spending the money on. And that's evolved over time. Should it be around infrastructure or research and innovation? And I think that's been a sort of background theme throughout. And then that also, in a sense, moves on to decisions. And Keith mentioned selection decisions at the moment. where do we spend the money on? Is it horizontal? Is it vertical? How do we get that mix correctly? And I think that's the key. And in a sense, that leads on to the second point about a lot of the discussion was about either or. Should it be in this or should it be in that? And often it was both. Right up to the end of should it be public or should it be private? I think the really interesting issues and debates are about the combinatorial aspects of it and how we move things forward in that interstices between those two roles. And I think it was mentioned right at the end, but I think that's important. And also mentioned by Slavo as well in his paper. The third one, this is sounding quite random, but I think came out particularly from the OECD about skills and training. I think it's almost paradoxical that when you get academics talking about it, they often neglect to talk about the key role of education, lifelong learning in a way, and training at all levels. And I think that is very important to remember in the discussion. There isn't that much on skills and innovation in the literature if you look at it. It's quite interesting, and I think that's always an area where I think we need to go back to and revisit. So I'm moving on. Fourth element is push and pull. And again, that was seen as a dichotomy. You know, should we be pushing money in almost supply side on government R&D? And I'm perfectly happy with that. But also there were aspects about demand pull. And I think that then leads on to one of my pet themes, but it came, I was noting it right along from the Essex team, from Slavo again, from the OECD. It's about, and right at the end, about how we, it's not just providing tax and monetary incentives to businesses about R&D and innovation, it's getting them to want to do it. Yeah. How do you manage to do that? Because it's not really about, as we've shown, there's a good rate of return about R&D investment. It's how we encourage them to do that and to be more active in looking at new market opportunities. And that's a key problem, as I've said before, for Europe, but also in particular for the UK. Number 5, core and periphery, obviously from Simona and from Slavo. We could talk about that at length, but I think Slavo's comment that it needs to be a more nuanced approach. We can't just see it, the periphery as a lumpen area. It's differentiated, it has different needs, and I liked its 3 different types of models there in terms of the different types of region. And we need to work on that and be more nuanced in how we deal with that. Interconnectedness is something that the JRC, in particular, I think, came out of their work. It's, again, looking at the interstices between technologies, how we encourage that. And I think it's one area of strength in Europe that we do well on the edges of different things, and how we can connect that better, I think is important. So their patent analysis, I think, was really interesting. Obviously, patents only tell part of the story. There is a much wider, as the Design Council said, there's a much wider area around the more soft side of things. Can I read my writing? No, I can't. I think I was reflecting because I used to work for the Commission a lot. Well, I worked for the Commission and often did summing up at the end. Until right at the end, there wasn't much discussion around finance. So I thought that was interesting in its own right. You know, reflecting back 20 years ago, it would have been seen as a really key issue. And obviously it still is. I'm not denying that. But I think novel ways of how we might fund that in terms of crowdsourcing, new ways of doing things is interesting. So I was quite interested about the reflection between, is finance as important as it was? And I think perhaps less so. But again, I come from a UK perspective where perhaps that's not completely right. Have I got to 8? I'm not sure if I have. But anyway, number 9. I think, again, it's quite paradoxical that, and I include myself, is actually, I don't think innovation policy is very innovative because, again, you know, working in this, perhaps I've been working in this too long a time. I think, obviously, we're spending public money. We're working on that. But I think there should be spaces where we should be try and be more creative. And obviously, as soon as you use the word creative, that's a sort of dead hand of not being creative. You know. But I think we need to look at ways of how we might do that better, and also how we evaluate innovation policies. I think that Nesta had some money where they tried to do double-blind trials of different policies, and I don't think that worked. But I think looking at different ways about how we might look at where things work, I think is interesting. So obviously I'm getting too old to do this, but I think we need to be more, in a way, to have that freedom opportunity to explore new ideas, perhaps in a safe environment. So perhaps, you know, in a fairly small group, I think provides that opportunity. So perhaps that's a space where we perhaps can explore for next year. Okay, so that's my effort. You'll get it in the policy briefing, and we've got one more minute before things end. So can I thank all the speakers again and the discussants who almost, well, in many ways did as much. So thank you all. For those going to the Turkish restaurant, so we've got the head for the basement, but probably we need to help follow people like Helen to go there. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
I don't know.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, those three. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.